let's flow. Let's connect and flow. This podcast is not here to challenge, dismantle, or replace anyone's faith. I deeply honor religious traditions and the roles they play in providing structure, meaning, and connection to the Creator. What I share here is simply another perspective, one that expanded my understanding over time. You are invited to listen with curiosity, not agreement, and to keep what resonates while releasing what doesn't. The theme here today is heaven. Is it a destination or a remembrance? At some point, every belief system has to answer the question of death. What happens when our body ends? Where do we go? And what does it really mean to return to God? How we answer these questions shape not only how we think, but how we think about dying, and then how we live knowing about dying. So I want to thank those who have joined. Thank you for coming in. Thank you for being part of this episode. I am so happy that you have joined me as part of this live. Like I said, is heaven a destination or a remembrance? And for me as a child, it has always been a destination. It has always been someplace I've been told I'm going to go when I die or after I die. And that then God will judge me. And then I'll know if I can enter heaven or if I'm going to be sent to hell. Now, this was my origin story. That's what we've been talking about, our soul, based on an origin story of Adam and Eve and death and hell, or death and heaven, or our basic principles or origin story of sovereignty, that we come in knowing what we want to achieve in this life as a goal, as a plan. We are only asleep for a very little time before our soul comes online and recalls what it chose to do and why it chose to come into this physical body and have this experience. It took me quite a while to move from the orientation of death, heaven, and returning to God as you're proving yourself consistently while in your human state, and then you still have to prove yourself in your spiritual state. Okay, so for me, I thought this was an appropriate title. The theme being, is heaven a destination or a remembrance or a recalling? At some point, we all have to deal with the question of death. Okay, what happens to the body when it ends? Where do we go? And what does it really mean to return to God or the Creator? Okay. So let's start with heaven as a reward in the traditional view. So in my traditional Baptist framework, heaven is something that's granted after death, like I just said, based on belief and faith and righteousness. Life is the preparation, and death is the moment when the soul is judged. Okay, did you hear me? The soul is judged, not the human being. Once we leave this, as they say in Baptist or Methodist or religiosity jargon, when the mortal coil is shed, right? I mean, and this was part of every question that I've ever asked since I was, I don't know, since I could talk. 3, 4. What for? Why? Why did you say that? That doesn't sound right. Okay. So so life is the preparation, and death is the moment that the soul is judged. God is encountered only then, after we've proved our life, not during. That's the way I learned it. Take what resonates, leave what doesn't. We are not here to judge, and I am not going to argue with you, a right or a wrong. Because why? There are infinite possibilities of how we can see our journey, how we can feel our journey, how we can speak our journey, how we can rewrite our journey in the next now moment, right? There's infinite possibilities for me. So I'm not going to argue it with you. This is just how I've been breaking it down, and it has make sense for me. And if it makes sense for you, okay. All right. Heaven is described as a place of it's separate, and it's eternal, and it's earned. That's what I grew up believing. That's what I was taught. I don't care if they go back and say, well, we didn't quite say that. Yeah, for me, that's what I took from it. Right? Okay. So heaven is described as a place. It's a place you're going to go. It's separate, it's eternal, it's earned through the right relationship with God. Okay? That's what I grew up with. This belief offers comfort and hope. When I was growing up, I hoped that God will see me as righteous, and I'll be able to live in the kingdom of heaven, in the new Eden. And I'm going to have to work and toil hard so God can see that, the God outside of me. Okay? What it promises under this premise or this theology is that it's a reunion and a peace and the end of suffering. And for many people, it brings reassurance in the face of loss. When they're losing their loved ones, this is reassurance that you're going to see them in the by and by. And this makes it so that you have to work even harder, because you know those people that left you, they were worthy, and they're going to be in heaven. Right? I'm going to tell you, when my mom passed, I still had some of that residual perspective playing in a loop. Right? At the same time, it can create kind of like a fear. It did. Will I ever be perfect in the eyes of God? Every time I make a mistake, will God hold that against me? And then you have other people telling you what God thinks, or what God's perception of you is. Because God can't talk to you directly. It's got to go through a filter, the minister, the deacon, the pastor's wife, the sister, the priest. Right? So we've got this in this traditional view. We've got the feeling of getting it wrong. That's the fear of that. The fear of not believing correctly. Oh, there's so many to believe. What if I get it wrong? Right? The fear of judgment rather than just being at rest or at peace in a knowing, right? I'm going to give you a quote. I go to prepare a place for you. I remember my grandmother uh, giving, or when we would have our prayers before bed or at dinner time, we all had to go around and say a verse or a Bible verse, and most of us said Jesus wept. But I remember my grandmother saying, I go to prepare a place for you. John 14:2. Okay. So with this view, you can ask yourself some embodying questions. I certainly did. I have been asking embodying questions my whole life. But to finally understand what those were and how they actually start to activate how I started to live my life, how I viewed my life from the inside out, was part of my growth process. Here's one. When I think about heaven as something I must earn, what do I notice about my body? The first thing I noticed about my body was I was always had a heavy heart. I always felt stressed, and my voice always trembled. Why? Because that's a not knowing, a not being sure, a being worried about being judged, and somebody else doing the judging in lieu of God not being able to talk directly to me. Okay? For me. So you can ask yourself, when I think about heaven as something I must earn, what do I notice about my body? If you're deconstructing, this is a great question, right? If you're deconstructing while you're sitting on the bench pews, listening to the reverend or the pastor or the minister or the priest or whatnot, you can ask this question internally as you're listening to the information that's being given. What is my body feeling? What am I noticing about my body as this information is being received in? I had to ask, does this belief, when I was doing the born again Christian route, does this belief create peace for me, pressure, or is it creating both? And am I confused? And my answer to that question was yes, I am confused, because this doesn't feel like how I believe the Creator wants me to move. The things that were coming out of my throat chakra, and I didn't know it was called the throat chakra then, was not feeling glorious, right? I felt like I was restricting people with other jargon that I was learning from my non-denominational church, right? Here's another question that you can ask yourself, an embodying question. How did I first learn what heaven was supposed to be? I first learned it when I was in Sunday school. It wasn't something my mom taught me. Matter of fact, my mom made some corrections on her own, right? The deeper, the more I asked an embodying question, and again, I didn't know it was an embodying question. I just was an annoying child that asked a lot of questions, but my mother never took it as annoying. I gave her an opportunity to give me more information. I just told you how I learned that. How did you learn it? What emotions come up when you think about being judged after death? Because I thought my mind was going to still be present after death. I didn't think of it as the soul getting judged. And why would the soul want to? Here's my next question. Why would the soul want to judge? Because the soul is part of the creator or God. Why would God want to judge itself? I kept asking that question a long time and being pushed to the side, and my mother being told I'm annoying and she should figure out how to shut me up because I'm disrupting Sunday school. Okay. Now, I'm not making this out that religion is bad. Everyone has to start somewhere. And there is something for everyone. And I believe that the divine will seek itself everywhere, including religion. You just have to, the divine gives you choice. You have to decide how it makes you feel. The divine isn't going to say, you got to do this and you got to feel good about it. No, the divine is saying, here's an opportunity. Tell me how you feel about it. Tell me where you want to go from here, because we're on this journey together, right? So let's talk about returning to God as consciousness. How about that? That's for me, that would be the sovereign view, right? From a sovereign soul perspective, death is not a judgment. It's a transition. Death is not a judgment. It's a transition. From the sovereign soul perspective, this is an infinite possibility. You can take it or not. For me, it went, ah, there it is. Sandy, you've asked enough questions that the doors to knowledge were open. And I would hear that word, but it would be in fantasies and fantasy movies and whatnot. But I never thought about it being a view of the creator from the sovereign state. And when I saw it as the soul releasing the body, right? The soul releasing the body, that it naturally returns back to itself, the creator. It returns back to God consciousness and releases my body. It goes back to source. Therefore, source doesn't have to judge itself. That made sense to me. But it doesn't have to be the end all be all for everybody else. That's just how it worked for me. That's just what made sense for me. Right? These are infinite possibilities. These are not right and wrong. These are not up for debate. I am not putting you in front of the class and telling one person to take one position and another person to take another position and then debate. Now, if that's something you want to do, there are many, many, many other platforms to do that on. There are a lot of people that want to debate. And guess what? That's an infinite possibility that the creator is seeking itself as, right? So the soul releases the body and naturally returns back to God consciousness or source consciousness, where it traveled from vibrationally in the first place. Oh, makes sense to me. There is no proving, only recalling. And then once the soul recalls it, it helps the mind, the unconscious and the conscious aware mind to remember. Right? So in this understanding, the creator or God is not waiting for the end of life. The creator or God is having or being in these life situations with you from the inside out. Right? All that means is that we are that we are, or what we are and who we are arises from our thought about ourselves. We're going to ask these embodying questions, and then those open doors or those windows of information about ourselves, who we truly are, our higher self starts to trickle down the information. It's like opening a window while it's raining and all the raindrops trickle in, right? The Buddha said, all that we are arises with our thoughts. With our thoughts, we make the world. Basically, before we see it, we make it. We make it, then, excuse me, we make it, then we receive it. We're the creator. So heaven is going to be whatever we choose it to be. Some people want to choose that it's a place or a destination that you go. And we have to allow them to do that because that's an infinite possibility. And they, with their free will, get to choose that. And then all we get to say is, let it be so, and keep on our journey. Right? We're not proving anything wrong. We're not proving anything right. We're allowing ourselves through our souls to remember. First, our souls are recalling through our body and mind and allowing the remembrance to come through from recalling. We're possibly beginning to understand that God is not waiting for the end of life. God is being life and moving to the next version of life, or the life ending its journey. It's not death. Let's put it a better way. Life isn't postponed. It is touched through our presence, our compassion, and our awareness. And you can even add in unconditional love. So as we're moving through life, it's our now, our nowness. We get to interact with the creator in our nowness. We don't have to wait for death to have an active life and make choices. And if we make them wrong, we get to go, oh, I didn't like the way that felt. let me try something else, or let me just let that go and let's move on to another part of the journey. How does that make my body feel? For me, I could rest in peace. I could actually experience peace. I could experience joy. I could experience that God is within me, and I don't have to figure out if I'm good enough to be with the divine, because the divine is already within me. The divine is making help, not just helping me make choices. It's being part of me as I'm making my life choices. For me, there are these are just two parts of an origin story. There are many origin stories that have many different ways of dealing with death. I have not embarked on learning them all yet. So heaven is not postponed, it is touched. Heaven, the heaven within me, is touched through my presence, through my compassion, through my awareness, and through unconditional love in my present moment. Right? So, hold on just a second. There we go. Okay. You can ask yourself, how does my body respond to this idea of returning through the body rather than being judged after before returning, before emerging? How do I feel in this present moment with feeling it this way from the inside out? Do I feel expansive? Do I feel expansion? Do I feel resistant? Or do I feel curious to find out more? Do I feel like I could explore my soul more? That there's more my soul has to tell me? When I felt moments of peace that didn't be, you know, how do I feel when how do I feel when I feel moments of peace that I didn't have to depend on fear or belief? The fear that I've done something wrong, or the that I had to believe a certain origin story, and it made my body stress. What does remembering feel like for me? Does it give you peace? Does it allow you vibrational harmony or resonance? Or does remembering make you fear? Because sometimes your soul tries to remember or recall, and your egoic mind, that unconscious mind that doesn't understand what you're trying to think, or what your higher self is trying to share, will make it fearful. God encountering in your now, every now moment, or God encountering after you die? I remember a lot my grandmother reading the Bible when she wanted to make us understand some of the things that we did wrong before she called us bad kids. She tried to, even back then, she was trying not to call us bad, right? You're not bad kids. You just did something that was wrong. And oh, in the Bible, this said this. And she would always quote the red letters, the Jesus moments. In Luke 17:20, and I think 21, the kingdom of God is not coming with things to be observed. The kingdom of God is within you. And that made me go, well, then I'm not looking outside of myself towards outside of something for God. God's not God's not going to judge me out there. What did she say that to me for? Because that's the first thought that I had that kept looping as a question. I think it's Luke 17:20 and 21. Check it out. Look at it for yourself. If you're into the red letter Jesus volume. Okay. It kind of, to me, it suggested that heaven is not in only in the future, that it's a now thing and it's within me. It's internal. It's experimental, right? Experimental show, right? It's part of the divine being part of me, seeking itself through, in, and of me, and giving me the free will reign to make choices so it could see itself as form. That helped me out. That's part that helped me out, understanding which origin story works for me. It might not work for everybody, and it's not supposed to. You take what resonates for you and leave what doesn't, right? From this view, death doesn't give me access to God because God is already within me. I am within God and God is within me. I am in the Father and the Father is in me. If you want, that's what Jesus said. And then everybody got mad at Yeshua because he was saying he was God. Well, that's their perception that they took the way he was telling them. I am in the Father and the Father is in me. We are one. We are wholeness. To me, that removed the veil of what we thought about God being separate from us. That we didn't need someone to speak for God to us, and we didn't need someone to speak for us to God. That's what it did for me. But it's okay if other people aren't there. I can't go damn them. That's not my job. That's not what I was called here for. And I finally figured that out. And that's part of growth and expansion. What? For me. I can only judge me so that or not judge me, but I can only discern me so that all my fingers are pointing back to me and none are pointing to anyone else. Right? All right. So as you get to, do you see where I'm going with this? I'm quite sure you'll have some questions, And if you're not in the vibrational audience right now and you see this in replay, ask the question. When you put it in the comment, I will see it and I will hopefully be able to answer your question. But only you will be able to take it for your highest and greatest good and make it what you need to uh, make it what you need to be in your everyday life. So here are some embodying questions. Where in my life have I already felt moments of heaven or deep peace? It could be standing in the grocery store. It could be riding in traffic and coming to a full stop and not complaining, but just turning up the music and being in peace and saying, I am thankful and grateful that I got this far. Right? How about another question? Do I notice God or the Creator more easily in stillness or in structure? You get to decide. And for me, stillness or structure means in my stillness and my oneness with the Creator from within to the out, and as opposed to seeking God outside of myself in the church building or in the pastor or in somebody who's more holier than me or someone who says they're more holier to me. Which one do I notice the Creator in? For me, it's in stillness. And stillness means that I get to go within and listen to my higher being ask me some questions when I'm still. When I'm in stillness, I get to hear my highest being, who, which is the Creator, asking a question about this body and this physical or mental mind or conscious, unconscious awareness as it moves through life from the inside out. For me, I'm not outside looking for other answers about who God is. I'm going within for me. Take what resonates, leave what doesn't. This isn't about changing anybody's orientation or religious orientation or anything. It's just an awakening that I had that has been ongoing, the deconstruction that has been ongoing since I was a child. What happens in my body when I slow down and I become present? That means just being in my now. Right? Those are embodying questions. And here's a good one. This is like a segue into the next one. I've had people, when I say the Creator, I will have people argue with me. I will have people just dump on me that you're just some woo woo and it's called the Almighty God. Or on other things, you might as well just say his name, Jehovah. And at first, my egoic self wanted to, oh, this is an argumentative moment. I've got to make but you know what? As I've grown and expanded and understood that each person has the free will right to call their Creator whatever label they want to label their Creator. I started out with Almighty God. I listened to a couple of friends who were Jehovah's Witnesses call Jehovah. I listened to people call him all my all my young life. Him, he. I rarely heard it or them or her. Like I said, I grew up Baptist, one of many religions or religious labels, right? So here's one: God versus authority. No, God as authority versus the creator as source. Religion tells you that God is the authority of everything. In spirituality, I found out that the creator is source of everything. So in sin-based belief, God often functions as external, take what resonates, leave what doesn't, authority. God is outside of us, therefore we need to look up to God. God is up there in heaven. You may look up there and see the stars and everything, but God is past that. I'm telling you, that's the way I grew up. That's the way the wording was given for me when I was listening. Not for anybody else, not for the kid next to me or the adult in front of me, but that was what I was taking in. In the sin-based belief, God often functions as an external authority. Look outside of yourself, don't go within. God watches, God judges, God approves, God disapproves. In sovereign awareness, God is source. God is all life. Life within all life. Life within me. The ever-present, ever-moving everything that is all and that is nothing at the same time. My mother used to quote this from the Bible in the red letter, right? I think it was John 10:30 or something like that. Go look it up. John 10:29 or John 10:30, and it said, "I and the Father are one." And he was told he was blaspheming God. He was calling himself God. This shifts the relationship from fear to intimacy. That God is within me. I don't have to fear God from out there. God isn't judging me. God is very intimate with me from within. Take what resonates, leave what doesn't. It doesn't mean anyone is wrong. It doesn't mean anyone is right. It means there's an infinite amount of stories that you can play in your playground. The playground is just that infinitely big. It's huge. I mean, mega huge. Mega huge. So huge it could blow you away into another galaxy. Right? You get to ask yourself an embodying question for you. How do I experience God? How do I experience the Creator? How do I experience illusion? How do I experience the matrix? Whatever your label is, how does my body respond to how I experience to this authority or this intimate connection? Whether you're experiencing as authority from the God from outside to inside, or the intimate connection from within to everything that's expansive outside that you are interacting with. How does my body, you get to say that, how do I respond? And you start to, for me, I started to become aware of it everywhere I went. I started to interact with, when do I feel closest to God? Do I feel closest to God when I obey and treat everybody based on how I was taught to treat them from the outside view of fearing God? And if I fear God, I got to make myself right with God. Otherwise, God is not going to let me into heaven. Therefore, I've got to judge other people and make them feel judged so that they'll move closer to God, so that I'm getting 1, 2, 3, and I've done it. I'm that much closer, right? Because I exactly felt like that, right? What happens when I imagine God as a relationship instead of a ruler? Because I was very confused, guys. I was very confused. Here is a God that gave me a body, a soul, a mind, and told me that I have free will, and then said, then I was being told that God's will is the only will that matters. I was confused. What changes when I imagine God as a relationship instead of a ruler? That's a powerful embodying statement. What changes about death? When heaven is a reward, death can feel like a test result. And haven't you heard it enough from Christians? I heard it pretty much my whole life. Oh, that's a test. God was testing you. God is testing you. You're going through that. Oh, God is testing you. God is testing you. When God is source of everything that is and is not and resides in you, then I found, or was the information was opened up to me, that death can feel like a return. It made me not worry so hard about other people that had passed on that I loved. Are they going to be in heaven, or are they going to be in hell? And am I going to ever see them again? Yes, I will, because they returned to the Creator. It's emerging. For me, man, that was like having that aha moment. And Oprah Winfrey wasn't the only one that could have an aha moment. Ah, ah. It softened my fear until actually it started to leave me. Does not mean that I don't miss the actual physical person. I do. I I miss the physicality, but I'm not worried about the soul and where that soul went to. It merged back and became the divine again, right? Life becomes less about securing the future and more about embodying the awareness of your now moment. It's less about being worried about whether you're going to make it into heaven or you're going to be pushed into hell. Because for me, I know I'm going to merge back with the Creator. So, guess what? That allows me or frees me up to live in my ever present now. Doesn't mean that I'm saying religious was wrong. It just, as I was moving and for a lack of any better word, deconstructing as a child and asking these embodying questions and becoming more present in my now, these answers helped me to understand all the all of the perceptions of the origin story that I was taught that wasn't for my highest and greatest good. So that when I thought about death, I didn't feel a tightening for me. I felt a softening. Because there are a couple, more than a couple of actors that have passed on that I really not only love the way they act, but I have noticed throughout their lifespan of being a good person. Maybe I wasn't their best friend, but listening to them talk and talk about experiencing life made me feel close to them. I'm going to miss them. But I know that version of them that is soul merging back with the divine, there it's okay. I can watch their bodies of work, but yes, I'll miss their how they engaged with the public, and you could see the the their heart space, their chakra, right? I didn't feel a tightening. I felt a softening. You get to ask yourself, how does my belief about death influence how I fully live? Are you living based on your fear that you'll be judged and therefore that you're always seeing all the negative or the wrong things that you do? You don't see the glorious moments of yourself. But that's a question you can ask for yourself. I certainly can't answer it for you. I can answer it for myself. I did. That's the only way I could move on. And some of those moments were, I'm not going to say they were easy. I don't think life was ever meant to be easy. I just think life was meant to be lived. Right? How does your belief influence, or how does your belief about death influence how you fully live? I think that's such a fair question for you. It was for me. It wasn't easy getting to the answer to actually, right? For me, it was allowing myself to deconstruct from a premise or a belief that was given to me when I was a kid going to church. Like every other kid in the 60s, every other young adult where I was in the 70s, right? Being this annoying little kid that asked all these questions that made the pastor or the pastor's wife or the deacon or even the church nurses want to run the other way, right? Another question. What would change if, ask yourself this. I'm not going to say that I asked myself this because I did. What would change if I felt less afraid of getting it wrong? Just going out and doing it. Not having to get it right so that God sees the best in you. Just going out and doing it. What would change if you felt less afraid of getting it wrong? Even making the choice of what's the next church you go to? Do I deconstruct? Do I open myself up to being or learning more about the universe? Or learning about other information that is not strictly in the Bible? Reading a book. I had to open myself up. That isn't where, that's the start of my library for me. There are other people who have rows and rows and rows of books. But that's the start for me, to open up and say, do I dare to read another book? It doesn't take me away from God because God is already, for me, God or source or illusion or matrix is already built in me. This was the best question that I found that I started to say. Where can I practice presence today? And my answer was everywhere. Everywhere that I am, I can practice my presence today. Why? Because the divine moves in, through me, and as me in every moment of every. This is what I used to say when I first started on Instagram. Every second of every minute of every hour of every day, the divine moves in, through, and as me. That's every now moment. So maybe heaven isn't a destination. Maybe for some, it is a remembrance. Maybe death doesn't bring us closer to God. Maybe, simply maybe, God is already within us. God simply moves what made us, simply moves through what made us forget. And now we're recalling that we were never separated. We were never separated. We just forgot for a moment. Here's an embodying question. What does heaven feel like in my body? Not my theology. What does heaven feel like in my body? Not what does theology feel like in my body, but what does the presence of the divine feel like in my body? Where am I being invited to soften instead of striving? Where do you feel it? If I trusted myself a little more, what would shift? If I trusted myself a little more, what would shift? Thank you for joining me for this episode, episode 3. I hope exploring this just a little bit, and this is just two different aspects. There are infinite amount of different aspects of death, of the Creator, of the Almighty, of the presence of God. Different information coming from different each person that has seeked the information wrote it down and put it in books or put it in scrolls, right? And then was called to share it. They were called to share. They were called to have a moment and share it with you. Doesn't mean that it has to be your belief. Doesn't mean that it has to be your origin story. Doesn't mean that any of that has to change. It's just a little bit of information given to you. Take what resonates. Take what little bits and pieces resonate, and then leave yourself open for something else to resonate for you from somewhere else. That's why I'm always and will forever be saying, take what resonates and leave what doesn't. This is called learning. This is called growth. This is called expansion. And then it moves into you having that moment where you evolve. And then you wash, rinse, and repeat. That's called life. So thank you for joining me. Soul Awakening podcast series, Sovereign by Design, Exploration of Your Soul. I will see you next Monday for episode 4, Awakening is Remembering. Everyone, have a beautiful Monday evening, no matter where you are. Thank you.